And then another thing just to point out before we get started is I know some folks I think are curious about the Phil's gift card that we had offered to folks. So just so you know, we're going to have a questionnaire at the end. We're going to ask folks to fill out that questionnaire with some information, just so we can send that out to folks. And I know it's a lot of strangers or folks who might not know each other on the call, but as a speaker, for any of you who are brave enough to turn your camera on, that's always very welcome as well, just because it helps from a presenter standpoint. And thanks all who are muted. Deb, a brave soul. Thank you, Deb. All right, we'll get started in 1 minute here. I was thinking about playing some music, but I didn't know if that would work well if I played it on my computer and then maybe there's a lag or some mismatch there. Pat, thank you for being a brave soul. I knew you'd be a brave soul. Thank you.
I got you, man.
I think that is the LA sunset in the background, and that makes me a little jealous. Okay, all right, well, let's get started. So as I mentioned, thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to join us. This is a home buying workshop that our team, our Willowmar real estate team, and in partnership with Stephen Barber from Guaranteed Rate, a loan officer that we've been working with for years, we like to host this workshop just to give a little bit of background to folks who are thinking about the home buying process, maybe curious about, hey, I've been hearing a lot of news about real estate. Is 2023 a good time to buy, and all of those questions. So just as a primer for today's discussion, we're not going to be able to get through all of those questions. Today is just more of a chance for you to maybe get a feel for our team, get to know us, maybe scratch the surface with some of those questions and start to really think about, is this a good time for you or your family to be thinking about buying a home? And hopefully you'll learn some things along the way as well. So a quick agenda for today's meeting. We're going to talk a little bit about our team, so you get a chance to meet our team. Next, we'll talk about where to begin your home search. I think that is a question that a lot of people have, like, how do I even wrap my head around this whole process? We'll talk about, our team likes to think about the home buying process in 4 steps. So we've kind of coalesced it down to 4 milestones, so to speak, and Phoebe and I will walk you through that. We have our Willowmar tips and tricks. We have a few for those who are new to the process. We'll give a market update. We'll talk about finding an agent. Maybe you're in another market like Pat, you're down in LA, finding an agent, what we would recommend looking for. And then we're going to do a kind of a mortgage lending session with Stephen for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then we'll end with open Q&A for anyone who might have a question. And then just so you know, if you do have questions, feel free to chat them and we'll get through them at the end of the call. All right, so here we are. This is our Willowmar team. We're 11 team members proud. I know you're probably counting that photo on the left and going, Cliff, that's not 11. We know we had some sicknesses, some COVID. We weren't able to get everyone in the photo, but just for context, it's 8 agents on the team, and we have 3 operations team folks. Deb actually on the call is heads our marketing. We have Aaron who heads our operations and listing coordination. And the reason why I mentioned that is I think we're really proud to be a team that services our clients versus I think some folks you might have the option of working with a single agent, which nothing wrong with that. But I think hopefully through this presentation, you'll kind of see the benefits of working of a team, because not only do we have more coverage, more expertise, but as you can imagine, 8 agents out in the field every day, the discussions that we have, the pulse that we have on the market really shines through just between all the clients that we're servicing at the same time. We're also really proud that 95% of our business comes from past clients or referrals. We don't really do much marketing, if at all, and we're just really fortunate that our past clients have enjoyed working with us and continue to send us business. We're also proud that we're one of the top teams in the Bay Area, and 2022 was a bit of a banner year for us. We did a little over 100 million in sales, and we're really proud to say that we helped over 70 families and clients in the Bay either find their home or sell their home. So a little bit about the speakers today. You're wondering, who is this guy talking your ear off already? My name's Cliff. I'm a realtor with Willowmar. Later today, you'll hear from Phoebe, who's also a realtor on our team. And then last but certainly not least, you'll hear from Stephen Barber. He's a loan officer with Guaranteed Rate, 20+ years of experience, just a wealth of knowledge. And I truly mean it when I say we so very much enjoy working with Stephen, because not only the knowledge is great, of course, but also the friendliness, the way he treats our clients, our clients, and responsiveness and all of that. I think you won't find someone as top-notch and professional as Stephen in the mortgage industry. So let's talk a little bit about our team's kind of coverage area. For those of you who are in the Bay Area, that map on the right, brand new, refreshed of our listings effectively, or transactions. And this is just 2022, just to give you a sense. We had one for 2021, but then we didn't want to muddy the waters by including all of that. So that's just from the past year. The areas that we service: San Francisco, Alameda County, Contra Costa County, as well as San Mateo County. We really believe that as a team, we want to make sure that we are servicing areas that we have expertise in. So we don't go into Marin County, where none of our teammates live. We don't really go into South Bay either, where we don't have any expertise. And then for those of you in SoCal, just as a heads up, in the next couple of weeks, we're launching there. Connie on our team, Connie and I grew up in San Gabriel, and so she's back home in San Marino now to her new home, and we're launching there. So yeah, just to quickly kind of talk a little bit about like navigating this process and where to begin. I would kind of think about it as 3 things as you kind of orient yourself. One, we've talked about it here a little bit: find an agent or team to work with. That's kind of step 1. Maybe get a referral from a friend, see who they've worked with, and more importantly, chat with that agent or team to see if that energy and that vibe and their knowledge and expertise kind of matches what you're looking for. Step 2 is think about your wants versus needs. And that's particular, I think, to the Bay Area, maybe the real estate search in California, where prices are generally pretty high, and folks, at some point, you're not going to sneak peek, you're not going to be able to get everything that you want in the home. So really thinking about what you want versus what is a need. And then the last point is just have fun. I know it's a big financial decision. I know it could be a very stressful process, but another way to think about it is you're window shopping, you're finding a home, you're investing in your future, and buying real estate, which is a really exciting thing. So just to kick things off, and I'll pass things off to Phoebe now, and she'll talk a little bit about the steps of the home buying process.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you all today. I'm Phoebe, as Cliff said, and I'm one of the team members on Willowmar. And so this next section is kind of the 4 steps to how to purchase a home. So at Willowmar, we try to condense it into an end-to-end process that's easy to digest. And as you go through this process with whoever your realtor is, that's your realtor's job, is really to be there with you through each of these 4 steps and really quarterback all of these processes with you. So don't worry if you can't remember every single detail of what we described, because again, your realtor will be alongside you once you actually go through this process. But this should give you a good kind of 10,000-foot view of what to expect. So next slide, Cliff. First step is pre-approval. So if you're obtaining a mortgage to purchase your home, which that is most of us in the room, this is the very first step. So you'll want to go through the pre-approval process in order to really understand your spending power and prepare yourself to make an offer in the case that you do happen to see a home that you'd like to purchase. So in order to be pre-approved, you'll kind of talk to different lenders and you'll work with a lender to complete a mortgage application, and you'll provide them proof of assets, confirmation of income, and they'll run your credit and also do an employment verification. So really your pre-approval qualifications will be based on your credit score, debt to income ratio, as well as various other factors. And during this kind of step in the process, you'll want to shop around with different lenders because you'll definitely find different rates and different loan products at each. And you can use the quotes you receive as kind of leverage to negotiate with other lenders as well. So this process can take anywhere from a few days up to a week, and in order to get your pre-approval letter. And once you have that letter, it's valid for up to 90 days. So as your agent, we can help you in this process as well by providing recommendations if you don't already have a preferred lender in mind. So the next step is the home search. And this is the fun part, really. Shopping for homes, this is where you really narrow in on exactly what you're looking for. And to Cliff's point, what are wants, what are needs, what are some things that could be deal breakers or things that you can compromise on. So as you kind of go through the process of either touring privately with your agent or going to open houses, you'll want to consider all of these different topics listed here. So just to get your brain kind of jogging, some questions that I would ask myself, or you should ask yourself if you're looking for a home, is kind of, things like, what room do you spend the most time in? Do you want to optimize for things like living space versus space in the bedrooms if you can't have both? How important to you is outdoor space? Or do you want to be walking distance to shops, restaurants, or potentially outdoor space? And then if you are looking at condos or townhomes, think about which amenities might be most important to you, because as you know, you will be paying into an HOA. So knowing what you're paying for and which things you'll be able to take advantage of are also things that you should consider as you're searching. So as you tour some homes, you'll start to get a better sense of the most important qualities that you're looking for, and you'll be able to better kind of hone in on each of these different categories and what you might be able to afford and what you prefer.
Awesome. So then we move into the next step. So assuming you found a home that you really like, it checks a lot of boxes and just has the right energy and all that's the criteria that Phoebe just went through. The next step is thinking about submitting an offer. And that can be kind of a daunting next step. So a few things to think through when putting together your offer, which is one, you'll work with your agent at that point to review what's called a disclosure packet. At least here in the Bay Area, those things are provided to folks upfront. Disclosure packet, it's chock full of information. It's the seller's way to share what they know about the home. And also if it's a condo or a townhome where there's an HOA, then there's going to be HOA documents to review as well. And then with your agent, you'll also be looking at comparables, homes that have recently sold in that neighborhood, ideally in that building or right on that street, for example, to start to triangulate, to think about like, what is the value of the home? And the more recent the comp, the more recent the sale, that should give you a more accurate picture of kind of what the current market value of the home is. On this call, we won't have time to kind of talk about how all the negotiations could unfold. And I hate to use the phrase like, it depends, but it really does depend. There's no clear-cut way that it will unfold every time. People ask, oh, well, if I submit my, tippy top price, but then will they come back and can we counter now? And then we go with our strongest and best after the counter. It doesn't always unfold. It's not, formulaic in that sense. Sometimes sellers might not do a round of counters, for example. Sometimes there might be multiple rounds of counters and to multiple parties, for example. So that's something that you'll just want to really be, working with an agent that you trust, working with a team that you trust, and make sure you feel like they have a good pulse on the market, because this is where, in my opinion, where a really good agent shines. So for example, in the first two steps that Phoebe kind of talked about, those are mostly out of control, out of the agent or the team's hands. The inventory is not really something that our team controls. But I think when you get to this step of the process, this is where you get to see, that team in action. How do they communicate? How do they negotiate on your behalf? How do they, help you think about the home and the value of the home? So that's the third step, offer negotiation. And then the last step is escrow and closing. And so this is assuming that your offer gets accepted. You do a little happy dance, you give a high five, and you're excited to move on to this last step. And escrow and closing is a fancy way for pretty much saying we're marching towards getting the keys. Escrow, they play a pretty important role. They're right, they sit it right in the middle. They're a neutral third party. They collect money from the buyer, even the bank funds into escrow. And then the proverbial kind of handoff, the key handoff to the buyer happens through escrow. Not officially through escrow, but once escrow has verified that the seller has paid off their loan, no liens on the property, property taxes have been paid, and those types of things. And then during escrow as well, that's when the appraisal gets ordered. You have more documents to send to Stephen and his team to make sure that you're pre-approved already, but now they have to do another layer of verification. And then at the end of escrow, normally 21 to 25 days, it's kind of a moving target, a little bit moving number, but nowadays it's about 21 to 25 days. You get the keys handed to you, and that's a pretty magical moment. So I wanted to share a little bit of kind of tips and tricks for folks. People always say, what are some things that I should be thinking about when it comes to the home buying process, or what are some things that what's an angle that I can take with the home buying process? And there are a couple that our team recommends. First, it's especially here in the Bay Area, where you might see a home listed generally 10 to 20% below where it's expected to sell. So to give you a sense, you might see a listing that's listed for $1 million. Really, that's not the price that the seller is even hoping to get. They're hoping for it to sell 1.1, maybe 1.2. And things have calmed down a little bit, but a year back in 2021, sometimes we'd see homes sell for 40 to 50% above the list price, which sounds kind of crazy to say, but it happened and was much more commonplace. So step one is to scan recently sold homes that have closed so that you actually know the price, and then you can confirm if your budget is realistic, because you can see actually what the highest offer paid for that home. Point two is talking a little bit about something that we've talked about already, which is just getting really, really clear on your wants versus needs. And that usually, if you're searching for a home with a partner, that usually unfolds into a fun conversation too about, what does your family want in the home, and versus what do you really need in that next home. And then step three, say hi to the listing agent. I think that's a step that is often omitted by buyers who are earnestly looking and not realizing that the listing agent, they're not on your team by any means, and they don't have a fiduciary duty to you as a buyer, of course, but do know that in a multiple offer situation, the listing agent is in the seller's ear and could influence that decision. And you as a buyer are making a positive impression, just being cordial, shaking their hand, or I guess elbow bumping now in the days of COVID, but just being positive and friendly to them can go a long way. And now we'll do a little market update.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the market. So this start of the year, and every start of the year, it's kind of a resetting and kind of seeing how this year is going to shake out. So we'd love to share with you kind of what we're seeing so far in terms of interest rates, inventory, as well as pricing and days on market. Next slide. So as far as interest rates go, despite additional Fed interest rate hikes, mortgage interest rates actually appear to be stabilizing a bit, if not potentially decreasing. And 30-year fixed rates are up to about 6%, up from 3.55 about a year ago. So that's 2.5%. And then you should know that even though it's not on this graph, which comes from Freddie Mac, that there are other loan products. You could opt for an ARM, which is an adjustable rate mortgage that changes after a period of time. So in this case, 5, 7, or 10 years. And even though it's not pictured, those rates do tend to follow a similar price trajectory. All right. And then as far as inventory goes, this graph shows all of the inventory in terms of new listings coming on the market as far back as December 2017. And really the big takeaway here is that real estate inventory is quite seasonal, with spring and fall being the heavy selling seasons. And so if you're trying to predict when you're going to see an influx of inventory, if you're the type of person who definitely doesn't want to leave any stone unturned and wants to see everything that the market has to offer, you can kind of time yourself a little bit into these seasons. And in September 2022, it's quite interesting because we did see a bit less inventory than 2021. And with prices being lower this year, we've also seen fewer homes come onto the market. Kind of despite these trends, though, what I can tell you about what Cliff and I have been observing just in the month of January is that a lot of the homes, particularly in the East Bay, have been really, really desirable and have seen a lot of offers. So Cliff had just seen a home that had, 70 disclosure packets out. So 70 interested parties, 10 offers. And I recently helped my client submit an offer and they ended up receiving 10 offers. We were one of 10. So just to give you an idea of how competitive it's been just at the onset of this year. So we'll continue to see how it shakes out as we move into the late winter, early spring.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit before we hop onto this slide, I think that's one thing that we were kind of excited to, of all the things, we were excited for the whole presentation, of course, but I think that point that Phoebe just mentioned was one thing that we were excited to share with folks, which is, the last few months in the real estate market, pretty much from July of last year to January of this year, it was very quiet. It was crickets, especially towards the end of last year. But for whatever reason, in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a noticeable uptick in buyer activity. And so that's like, for example, an example of our team feeling like we have a pretty good pulse on the market. You might not hear of it in the news yet. Maybe if you dig really deep, there might be some news articles on it. But we feel like we're getting a pretty good sense that things are picking up earlier this year than typical. And contrary a little bit to what we're seeing on some of the news headlines right now. Quickly on this slide, prices and DOM, or days on market. I thought this was really illustrative because I think one thing that we hear a lot from our prospective clients and buyers is, how do condo and townhome prices track versus single family homes? This is pulling data from San Francisco, but I think pretty indicative of the Bay Area as a whole. As you'll see, they track generally pretty close with one another. During COVID, I think it's been a little bit harder for the condo market, and it's been a little bit softer. But generally speaking, if you look back, this goes back all the way to 2012. They track pretty closely. And then the other thing to highlight too, I don't know if you can see my cursor as it's moving, but where it says 2022, kind of on the top right side, that was April, May of last year when real estate prices kind of peaked at that point. And and this is what you might have been hearing in the news, everything to the right there, of prices kind of declining. So we've seen a pretty drastic decline of about 10 to 15% just in the last 6 months. Presumably also, that's why I think there's an uptick in buyer activity. New Year's resolutions, folks thinking that, hey, now could be a good time to get into the market because prices have come down considerably. And then next, we could talk about this one quickly. This is sales volume by property type. I thought this was also just interesting to share because I think generally, you hear a lot in the news about single family homes, but funny enough, actually in San Francisco is the only county in the Bay where actually condo sales make up more than any other category. It's actually more than 50% of the home sales. And that's with certain pockets of San Francisco still not having recovered, like Soma, for example, still pretty quiet in that neck of town. And then also, I think eye-opening for folks, this is more specific to San Francisco, but TICs is a very viable option for folks as well. And then also townhomes and co-ops are a much smaller subset, and then 2 to 4 unit kind of duplex, triplex, 4 unit buildings as well. But just to just share the diversity of real estate out there. Sometimes I think our clients come with a vision of like, hey, I need to buy only this type of home because I think I can only afford this, or this is what it means to own a home. But just know that there are a lot of different flavors out there.
Awesome. And just to dive in really quick, we're going to fly through these slides, but the next couple of slides just illustrate the different districts and the different neighborhoods that we serve within each of the areas. So within SF, San Mateo County, Contra Costa County. And really our point here is that real estate is very local. As you can see in SF, it's segmented into these various districts. And you'll see there's in the upcoming slides, very specific neighborhoods as well in the other cities that we serve. And we really only service areas where we feel like we have a deep expertise because there is so much to know in each of these different pockets. So if we move through the slides, you can see in Oakland, even though there's a small amount of surface area in Oakland, there's still so many different pockets, and each one has a different look, a different feel, different price points. And so being able to help educate our customers is a big part of the value that we bring. And if you advance to the next couple slides, you'll notice that Walnut Creek, same story, and then San Mateo as well. Alrighty, so now you might be wondering, now that you know how to purchase a home and what the steps look like, how should you go about choosing an agent? So for us, we would say the most important factor in selecting an agent that you want to work with is really just choosing someone you trust. To that end, having a recommendation, Cliff alluded to this, having a recommendation from friends or family is a great way to start that search, because you can rest assured knowing that they've already served your loved ones well. So it can be also a good indicator that you will have a positive working relationship also. And like you saw in one of the first slides, 95% of our business comes from referrals. So we like to think that good people recommend good people. Now, relationships aside, you'll want to consider these other really important qualities when looking for an agent. The first is volume and recency. So you want an agent who's really in tune with the current market. A lot of what Cliff and I have been talking about the current market and different market shifts that we've experienced, even within such a short time span, even from November to now. Since it shifts so often, agents who are really boots on the ground doing a lot of transactions, they're going to have the best intel and be able to guide you in the right direction. And at Willowmar, not only are we, of course, boots on the ground every day, but we have such a collaborative team, and we're always discussing with each other what we're seeing across the various markets that we serve and in our day-to-day transaction, to make sure that we don't have just the insights based on our own personal experiences, but really we get the combined insights of everyone on our team. You'll also want to work with someone who shares similar ethics and values, and one whose communication style meshes well with yours. So think about what your expectations would be from an agent you're working with, how responsive or proactive you'd want them to be, and use that as kind of a barometer as well. And then last but not least, experience and network. So this ties into the first few points that we led with. You'll want to find someone who has good relationships with clients, but also other agents alike. So many deals are actually won in the back channel. So whether, we're working on a listing or a purchase with our clients, we really pride ourselves in our ability to build relationships and connect with others so that we can be your best advocate and stay one step ahead of the game.
Can I add a fourth? That was so good for you. Can I add a fourth real quick?
Yes, please do.
I just thought there's an element too that you want to find a agent who doesn't feel like things are transactional as well. And I think this is probably a good kind of segue to Steven's section too, which is like, real estate, I think, can be a very long-term kind of focus investment for some folks. And you want to kind of build a team, agent, loan officer, that really has your best interest at heart, but also that's thinking about things more from a long-term viewpoint. A lot of our clients, we've helped them as their families grown and transition, and just having that history with them can really make a difference with the home search, with the whole process, and just that familiarity between both parties.
Yeah, that's a great point, Cliff. Thanks for including that. Speaking of Steven, at this point, we're actually going to hand it off to Steven, who's going to talk through some common questions that folks ask lenders, but also guide you as kind of first-time home buyers potentially on things to look out for. So Steven, over to you.
Thanks so much for that. And yeah, all the clients that go with Willowmar are super happy with you. You know, if you're working with some agent, it doesn't feel like they're like full-time in the market doing this and taking it like very from a professional responsible aspect. You need to switch what you're doing. You need to be with people that are doing lots of transactions and have their ear to the ground and know exactly what's going on. And that's what you're going to find with Willowmar. So, hey guys and gals, I'm Stephen Barber with Guaranteed Rate. Been lending in the Bay Area for a couple decades now, and I'm just going to go through a couple quick points with you. So whenever you're talking to a bank, they're basically going to break down that there's basically two pockets or segments of loans. Conforming, which is basically everything below like $1,080,000 in loan amount, and jumbo, which is over $1,080,000 in loan amount. Why is it important to designate those two pockets? Because the rules, the pricing, their interest rates completely different. So you need to know what pocket you're playing in, so you understand the rules and what the rates are. So those are called conforming and jumbo. And once again, the dividing line in the Bay Area is $1,080,000 and change. A lot of the other question I get asked quite a bit is, hey, is there any first-time homebuyer programs out there? And what I've said in the past is generally, you know, in the sub-million market, if you're trying to buy something for $1 million or less, yeah, there's programs out there that'll help with like down payment. If you want to put like 3.5% down, 5% down, there's programs that let first-time homebuyers get in with little to no down payment. The other thing that's recently happened is that we now at Guaranteed Rate have a discounted rate program for first-time home buyers that can show that their income is at the county's median income or below. So for instance, if you look at Alameda or Contra Costa County, that AMI or area median income is about $180,000. For those clients that come to us for that, that are applying and they can show that their income is at that level or below, they're going to get a discounted interest rate, which is great. So trying to help those first-time home buyers kind of like in the lower income bracket to get into a place. When it comes to down payment, you may like read or heard from a relative that you always have to have 20% down, and that is absolutely not the case. Kind of going back to those two pockets of loans again, in the conforming loan space, you can be putting down 3.5%, 5% down, no problem. You can do that all day long. And in the jumbo space, which would be $1 million plus in purchase price, you typically have to put at least 10% down in order to get mortgages for you. The other question I get asked quite a bit is, hey, we're not married, you know, we're living together, my partner and I, but we want to apply together. Is that okay? Absolutely. You don't have to be married to apply together. It just has to make sense that you two are buying a property together. And last, when you are getting pre-approved, especially in the Bay Area, especially if the Willowmar team is going to be making a competitive offer for you, you have to have all your ducks in a row. You have to have been fully vetted so the seller knows you're serious and that your offer is a serious offer. And that means we're going to pull your credit report. It's no big deal. We're going to look at your pay stubs, your bank statements, and all the financial documentation to make sure that you are ready to go. Why are we going to do this? Because once your offer is accepted, you do not want any surprises. You want things to go like smooth and easy and just get the keys a couple weeks later. And I think that's it for me, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of this as well.
Cool. I had a couple of quick ones for you, Stephen, that I think might be relevant to folks. One is what's the pre-approval timeline right now, and how quickly are you seeing that get turned around?
Yeah, it's all digital. So once you do the application and you upload the pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, I think 24 to 48 hours. If your situation is a little bit more complicated, like you're self-employed and I have like business tax returns and your personal tax returns and your situation is more complicated, maybe like 4 or 5 days at the most.
Awesome, cool. And then for those who might be curious, what kind of distinguishes guaranteed rate versus maybe other lending options that they have? I know the answer, of course, but I'm just wanting you to share.
We're kind of like a mini. I use this analogy all the time. Like if you go to B of A or Chase, they have one sandwich, and here's the ham and cheese sandwich. This is what you're gonna have today. We also have the ham and cheese sandwich, but as a mortgage bank, mortgages are all we do, and we partner up at our bank with investors like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, plus a bunch of other ones that you probably have never heard on the street. And with these investors, we have a variety of different sandwiches, whether it be the 30-year fixed or an ARM or what have you. So I just have a lot more variety within the bank. And why that's important is that, people and properties are like snowflakes. Not everyone is completely different. And lending guidelines or underwriting guidelines are very rigid. It's like a box. Do you fit in the box? And the fact that I have all these different investors with different underwriting programs, I'm able to navigate and find solutions that a B of A or Chase can't. They're either going to be a yes or no. I'm going to be, no on this one, but I can pivot and go to this loan program and it can work. Maybe it's because the property has some quirks. It may not even be you. It could be something with the property, but I'm just going to have more options.
Awesome. And then the $1 million question that we won't hold you to it. I think you might know what's coming. Is any thoughts on interest rates and where they are now, where they're headed? I know obviously no crystal ball, but what are you seeing on your end? What are kind of experts?
So the best kept secret is that since Thanksgiving, rates have been slowly and graciously going down. Why? Because the Federal Reserve has kind of said, hey, yes, we're going to be cautious and we're slowing things down, but we're not going to be as aggressive as we were in the interest rate hikes. And it's a great question to bring up today because today was the day that they announced. They only went up 25 basis points, which was the least they were going to do. But what's more important is the commentary they made afterwards. There's all these press conferences afterwards, and that's where the magic is in what is said. In what the chairman said in the press conferences today is in regards to what's going to happen to the remainder of the year. They're really dialing back and saying, hey, we kind of got this. It's going to get better. And if you, not that you would do this, but if you watch the bond markets and everything today, interest rates got tremendously better through the course of the day after all these Fed announcements. So rates are going to go down. I can't put Vegas odds on that, but if you ask like 10 well-known economists, 90% of them are going to say that rates are going to come down this year. It's just a matter of how quickly and how much.
Yeah, that's a great reminder of, like, I think people hearing the news, Fed interest rate is not the same as the mortgage interest rate. And I think it's
absolutely not. So yes, it went up by a quarter today, but rates went down because the quarter was kind of like a priced in good announcement based upon what every which way it could have gone. It was the least offensive.
Yeah. Jamie, hi Jamie, by the way, thanks for asking. She had a really good question. She asked, why would someone choose an ARM versus fixed rate?
It's a great question. All loans in America last for 30 years. The loans are named after how they act. So a 30-year fixed is kind of like a freight train. Think of it as just slow moving. It's never going to change over the course of 30 years. The rate is set and you're just going to see the same exact thing for 30 years, no stops on that freight train. A 30-year fix is also going to have the highest rate because it provides the most protection. But let's say we're working with somebody in an industry that they move quite a bit. It's a very volatile, like to move up in the industry, you have to be able to be willing to relocate. So they typically relocate every 3 or 5 years. But they want to buy a place right now in the Bay Area, but they know they're not going to be here more than 5 years. I would suggest that they look at like a 7-year ARM because the rate's going to be lower than a 30-year. It gives them the protection that the rate's fixed and promised for the first 7 years. After 7 years, the rate just starts adjusting. So it should take care of what they need. They should save money over the next 7 years. And for some reason, if their plans change and like, oops, I'm going to stay here, then just refinance into a 30-year fixed or whatever you need. But that's just one example of what somebody's time horizon is and why it makes sense. You can come up with a million examples of why somebody would have a short time horizon. You just have to find enough protection on the rate to cover the time horizon that you think you need.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. The way we kind of chat with our clients about it is it's the exact same way we say, if you know, or there's a really good chance that you might be moving, or either physically moving or selling the home in the next 5, 7, 10 years, whatever the adjustable rate period is, then you probably want to have an adjustable rate mortgage. But if you think there's a good chance you're going to stay in the home and it's a forever home, then no need to kind of take that risk and have that stress hanging over your head of when that adjustment could happen, and just might as well lock in the 30-year fixed. Move on to some other, there's enough stresses in life. Move on to something else to worry about.
Another good example is like if somebody's buying a total fixer and they're going to go into a huge construction project on it in the next couple of years. Why get a 30-year fix? We're probably going to refi anyway to like pull money out to like do the renovations. Your forever loan. We got a loan to buy the place. We'll do another loan when you need to renovate.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. We're very much on time, which is great. Anyone have questions for us? We'll move into Q&A with folks, and also might as well just put this up here too, which is connecting with folks on the call via Instagram. Phoebe has a TikTok selling San Francisco. That's a great account handle. And then Steven's email address as well, if you want to get in touch with him. Any questions from folks? And I realize it looks like I'm in like a cave, so let me turn on my light.
I have a question on interest rates.
Yeah. Hi, Adrian.
Hi, Cliff. Thanks for holding this. So, obviously right now interest rates are, higher than they were a year ago. But if you were to buy a home now at the higher interest rates, is it right that you could just, wait a few years, and if the interest rate goes down, you could refinance it to the lower interest rate so you wouldn't be subject to it for the whole 30 years or so?
Absolutely. So first of all, rates are actually slightly more attractive than you probably see out there. The ability to find something in the 5s right now for an interest rate, completely achievable. And if it's a property where you can negotiate with the seller and maybe get a seller credit, you could even get rates down in the 4s right now. So not as unattractive as you thought they were. And there's other kind of buy down options where you can get a decent interest rate for the next couple of years. But yes, at any time, whenever somebody buys, there's always the opportunity to refinance. There's some fixed costs in refinancing. The transaction fees are a couple grand, but it typically, if there's been a huge move in interest rates going down, typically it is well worth it. And the savings in the monthly payment will typically pay for the costs within a year or two. When you're looking at the ROI of like refinancing, like, okay, I'm dropping my payment by $200. So, the costs of doing this refi will more than pay for itself in less than, 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. And just to add to that, that's, our take on it as a team is that's why I think it's pretty important to negotiate hard on the price, to your point, Adrian, because, down the road, I think it's pretty expected that interest rates, there's incentive, I think, for interest rates to come down, maybe not in the next immediate future, but over time for sure. And so, to your point, like negotiating hard on the price, effectively how much mortgage you have, because you can always refinance, as Stephen mentioned.
Thank you.
This might be a good time too. Stephen, can you chat a little bit about, it's been a really cool strategy that you've suggested to our team about the rate buy down and effectively getting seller credit
Yeah.
at close.
So especially during like the holidays when things were really slow, there were many opportunities where you were kind of like the only person coming in on a property. So like you had the full attention of the seller. So let's say that you were looking at a place and Willowmar had felt out the seller and realized that you probably could like whittle off like $10,000 or $15,000 in purchase price for them, that they're willing to negotiate that much. What we did several times is, as opposed to taking a haircut of the purchase price and just buying the place for $10,000, $15,000 less, we bought it for the same purchase price, but we got a credit from the seller for $10,000, $15,000. There's a credit from them to you, and you could use that credit to pay points. And points are just prepaid interest where you can buy down the interest rate. So let's say that, you know, the interest rates currently were like 5.875. If I had that $10,000 or $15,000 to prepay some interest, I could get that 30-year fix maybe down to 5% or 4.875. And that's what we did for several people over the last couple months, where we used the negotiations to get a discount from the seller, but that discount went to buying down your interest rate. And what was interesting was that dollar for dollar, the interest rate buy down was 3 more times effective than if you had just taken a price discount in the purchase price. So like when you look at your monthly cost, like, hey, how much is this place going to cost me? If you just said, hey, Willowmar, just get them down $10,000, $50,000 the purchase price, be done, that would have gave you some savings, but I got 3 times the savings by getting the interest rate down to like low 5s, down to 4.875 for people. So it was very productive and helped a lot of people get a rate they can be very happy with for quite a while. And then if rates do come down over the next couple of years, then take advantage of it then.
Awesome. Yeah, it's been a really, really neat strategy to see put in place. Cool. I think if there aren't any other questions, I guess it's always good to give folks more time back. And I think some folks are probably waiting for the link to the Google form too. So let me send that out via chat right now to folks. So let me send that out. Feel free to click on that. And then maybe Phoebe and Stephen and we could plan to be here for a few more minutes. I know some people might be a little bit shy to ask a question in front of a big Zoom audience like this. So we'll stick around for a few more minutes, but that's really it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you all have a great 2023. Someone mentioned to me, it's already February 1, which was like mind blown, like, oh, that's crazy that 1 month is done for 2023. But wishing you all a blessed 2023. Thank you all so much for joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Any other questions from folks?
I actually have more questions.
Oh yeah, let's go for it. Yeah.
How do you decide between like, or how much like of a down payment to put down? Like, should it be the max of what you can afford, or like, yeah, how do you determine?
I'll give you my realtor perspective, and then I'm sure Stephen can kind of mention from kind of lending perspective. The way I kind of think of, I guess the super detailed way is like thinking about how you want to use that cash or capital effectively. I think that's how I would advise someone. I think for some of our clients, the additional peace of mind of putting a really big down payment so that they have less of a mortgage hanging over them every month is worth that peace of mind, regardless of what they could do with that money, so to speak. And then on the other side, for folks who want to be kind of more nuanced, be more fine-tuned with how they're managing their finances, I think generally speaking, a lot of our clients are probably opting to do 20-25% down, which is kind of like the standard, I would say. I mean, as Stephen pointed out, there's other options here, but that's kind of the more common number that we see. So yeah, that's kind of how I would initially think about it. The one piece that I'd offer from a strategic view is if you have room to put, like, just say you could put down 50% down, there is like in the offer, it could behoove you to submit the offer saying you're going to put down 50% down, show the proof of funds, because from the seller's perspective, that is, all things equal, is a stronger offer than an offer same price coming in at 20% down, for example. And then once you're in contract, it really is between you and the lender. As long as you close on time, the seller doesn't distinguish between what was funds coming from down payment versus from the lender. It's all just money in their bank account.
So Adrian, whoever you're working with the mortgage piece should give you options and should show you kind of like side-by-side analysis of like 5, 10, 15, 20% down. So you can kind of run the numbers and see what makes sense to you as far as what you're comfortable with. Because obviously, if you're buying a place with 5% down versus 20% down, obviously 5% down is going to be higher cost per month for you as far as your carrying costs. And it also just depends on what price point you're in. If you're talking like $1 million or less, you're going to have all those down payment options available to you, and the interest rate's not going to change that much. You're not going to be punished or anything for like having a low down payment. But if we're talking about a bigger purchase price, like jumbo, like $1 million plus, it would, if you can do 20% down, you should, because the rates are going to be much better. You can do 10% down, but it's not as attractive financing. Did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Bring them on.
What other questions do you have, Adrian? And are you teasing? Are you back in San Francisco? Or are you is that a teaser background?
Oh yeah, I'm in San Francisco, but not
Okay.
not at the bridge.
Yeah. What else is on your mind? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but if you have other questions.
My last question was just more like around timing of buying. Like, how do you know when it's a good investment to buy?
Yeah.
If you're not really in a rush to buy, for other reasons.
Yeah. Is this more of a home that would be you'd live in it, or more purely as an investment property?
I guess one that you would live in.
I would say, similar, I think, with other investments or the stock market. I don't want to say it's a fool's errand, because that's maybe too dry, but trying to time the market, I think, can be very, very difficult, and could be just a big waste of time. It's really only in hindsight will you know if you timed it correctly. I think our team kind of leans into, does the monthly payment and job security and all those things feel right and comfortable for that person? And then also, do you feel comfortable with the home? Have you done enough research? Have you, vetted the neighborhoods? Do you feel like this home really checks those boxes that make you feel really comfortable with it? And I think that's kind of how we guide the search. Just knowing that trying to time it can just be really, really difficult. Like if someone asked me right now, hey, is the market going to go up or down it's interesting because of the recent activity in the last couple of weeks. So it looks like there is demand, and probably the demand will be more than the supply that's coming on. So I think there's some case to be made that prices may come up a little bit at this point. But if you asked me in early January, my thoughts, I would have said very likely I think prices would go down further. So it's just, for someone who spends all day, every day looking at the real estate market, I'll just say, like, it feels almost like impossible to determine like where prices are headed. And I also give the classic example, like March 2020, our clients who were like, hey, is now a good time to buy or sell? I think if you asked almost anyone in the industry, they're like, this is not, we're heading into a pandemic, this is super risky, et cetera. And then by May, I mean, the story from May 2020 to, 2 years later, it was just up and up and up and up. So just very, very hard to predict. Sorry, I didn't mean to hog the mic. Anything else, Phoebe or Steven, you want to add?
No, I think the only thing I was going to say is that real estate typically does very well over long time horizon. So also really the return on investment is also going to depend on how long you plan to hold the asset as well. And so if you factor that in and you do plan to hold over a very long time horizon, say 10 years, whether you purchase slightly, a couple percent up or down, it'll kind of be a wash over a super long time horizon.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions from folks? Okay. Well, thanks again for joining and spending some time with us on Wednesday evening. I think that's it. We'll give everyone back 2 minutes. Take care. Thank you. Thank you all.